speaking a little
No,
off.
that's quite all right. I go market the last here
Do 8 minutes
and Tara's chat. I mean, look, over the last number of weeks and indeed months, the charity sector in this country has been in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Charity in this country goes back generations. We are a nation of givers. We see what we've done throughout the world, going back to the people who went on missions abroad all over the world, what we've done in terms of international peacekeeping, in terms of what we've done to support people far less well off than ourselves. And we did that in a time when this country didn't have the resources and people didn't have the resources. So I suppose the principle of giving within is an innate element of the Irish psyche and the Irish people. But also there is an innate sense of trust. And unfortunately, a small but significant element within the charity sector has breached not just the legal trust in essence, but the moral trust which the people have had. People have no issue whatsoever with a fair day's wage for a fair day's work. Nobody has an issue with somebody getting appropriate remuneration for their senior position. But I put in inverted commas, appropriate. What we've seen through revelations, not just in the last number of weeks, but indeed going back the last number of years, is significant salaries well in excess of what the Prime Minister of the country is getting, or indeed the Minister with responsibility for legislating for the sector is getting. Now, there is something fundamentally wrong in that particular scenario. When you have a private company that is a wealth-generating company paying a chief executive a significant amount of money because that person is leading the wealth-generating, well, that is reasonable. But it certainly is not reasonable where an organisation that generates its resources from the taxpayer in the first instance, a lot of these Section 38/39 companies, the whole Section 38/39 has become a buzzword with people now. People's awareness of what was done with a lot of these companies didn't really exist prior to that. But like to have companies like that receiving our chief executives receiving significant remuneration from the charities far above and beyond what is reasonable and what is appropriate is an issue. The corporate governance of charities is something that for long periods of time has been an issue. And indeed, in 2009, when the government did, at the time, did make an effort to deal with these issues, Fine Gael in opposition supported them because it was the right thing to do. We, on taking office, have sought to ensure that the pathway that the Minister is chartering forward is the correct pathway, and took some time in considering that to make sure it was the correct pathway. That decided, I think it was wholly appropriate for the Minister in January, in the midst of the controversies, and controversies in the plural, to make an announcement that he was going to set up the Charities Regulatory Authority. I think that that is certainly going to bring some clarity. But I do believe that over the coming years, we do need to look forensically at the management of charities in this country. From the small charities right up to the big players, if you want to call them that. There were thousands of registered charities in this country, some with obscure titles. I think A Pint a Month is the name of one charity. I wonder what they do. And I'm sure perhaps they do some very good work. I don't know. But we do need to have a discussion and a forensic analysis of charities. There is a case where there are charities doing work that other charities are doing, where there is duplication. That needs to be examined. If you have a national charity doing very good work, do you need a whole plethora of localised charities doing the same work? effectively duplicating resources. Certainly, the accountancy element of charities is something that needs forensic examination. You have charities set up as means of companies being efficient with their taxation payments. People, many companies make very generous donations to charity, which are totally legitimate and above board and appropriate and very welcome, and give enormous support to charities. But you have others that make donations to charities, which perhaps could be described in the most charitable language as being somewhat obscure. And one would question, technically legal, but is it appropriate? I think that the behaviour of accountancy firms has to be part of the overall conversation that we have about charities. I don't believe that we need that there should be a differentiation between somebody paying their taxes and somebody putting €1 in a bucket. The money should have the same element of transparency. The ordinary individual on the street, their concept on charities is very simple. They want transparency. They want to ensure that the vast majority of what they're contributing is going to the charity of which they have chosen to contribute. At the moment, as a society, we can't stand over that that's happening. It is happening in many charities, but there are many charities where it's not happening as well. It is appropriate and proper, that the scrutiny has moved onto the charities because, as I've stated already, the contribution of individual citizens to charities should have the same transparency as paying their taxes. I would be very interested to hear what the Minister's contribution and response is to this debate. I do believe already that significant progress has been made, but I would consider the progress that has been made to date to be a starting point only, and that in order to restore ultimate and absolute confidence of the Irish people in charities, we certainly do have a job of work to do, and that job of work has started, will continue for the lifetime of this government, and I sincerely hope will continue with the next government, because it is going to take a significant period of time to achieve the absolute confidence that we need.